Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Poured silver bars versus cast silver bars. What's the difference? Let's explore! For many of us, when we look at these two different bars, though they may have different finishes, in fact, maybe a better example would be one that has sort of a very similar finish to it, they look relatively close to the same, as they appear to be sort of, hand-made. I guess that would be the right term for it, but there is a definite difference between poured silver and cast silver, and you can tell by looking at it to a degree. And the bar here on the left is a poured silver bar, a 10-ounce size variety by Prospector's Gold and Gems. And this has been poured and then also given a sort of a matte airbrushed finish. Well, I guess it would be vapor blasted to a point, which gives it that unique kind of a matte finish to it. Usually cast bars are typically shiny and very smooth looking bars. So you can kind of tell the difference by looking at them and getting an idea that they are just have a very smooth look to it and all around. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on what things to look for. But what is similar to these bars is that they're both stamped. And you can see here that this has been stamped after it's been struck. And that's kind of the same situation here with the cast silver bar as well too. This cast bar is by Nadir Metal Refineries. It's a 10-ounce silver bar here, and it has been stamped accordingly here. And the one thing about these cast bars is, these are probably more mass-produced and take a little less effort, because I'll kind of explain the difference between the different techniques used to produce these. The poured bars are typically, in almost all cases, hand poured. Now, I'm sure there are certain ways, and I'm sure that probably folks like modern precious metals maybe have a semi-automated process to do it, but my guess is they're probably all hand poured, and of all different varieties. Here's another 10-ounce bar that I actually had poured quite some time ago and stamped it, but you can see kind of that rough appearance to it, and that is really the case. And the difference, there's a unique quality and character to these poured silver bars that you're not going to get in a cast bar, even though it does have somewhat of an appearance of looking like it's poured to a degree. But in reality, it is not. So what the difference is the manufacturing technique is they both have similarities in that they start with molten silver that solidifies very quickly, but the difference between the two is that one is actually poured into a mold, and the other one is essentially silver shot, placed into a mold of sorts. And that is really the biggest difference, is how the silver is melted down. So you take silver and put it into a mold, and then put it into an oven and heat it up, and that gives you a cast bar. And that's what this is. And another way to be able to tell the difference is to look at the backs of these, and you can see that the back of a poured silver bar has quite a lot of character to it. In fact, this bar here has very little what they're known as air bubbles that you would normally see in a poured silver bar. And this bar here has only a small air bubble. Some people find that a unique and attractive character to poured silver. Here's a 5-ounce bar that has a little bit more of those bubbles that have come out. Some of them have much higher bubbles where oxygen kind of gets trapped in as it's poured, the silver is poured into the mold. But there is a lot of character that comes out of these. You can see there's pore lines that are evident, as you can see on this 5-ounce piece. And definitely here, the rippling effect as the silver solidifies there. It creates sort of these patterns that are unique to each piece. Here's another example with this bar, how it kind of, when it solidifies, it just comes to kind of a point here. And that gives it quite a unique character that you will see. Usually the edges are a little bit rough from the side of the mold. And there is poured silver that it can be, if done right, it can be very, very smooth and very well done. But these poured silver bars, a lot of people like that character aspect of them. And it continues to be quite an appealing and attractive look, but very unique and also a bit rough. Whereas the cast bars are very smooth, much more consistent in their quality and appearance. You can see the bottom of this bar has much less of that activity and bubbles going on because it's silver shot, essentially heated inside of a mold that is placed inside of an oven. And so it is literally cast, and to give it that appearance here of a smooth and consistent look throughout. And that's kind of what makes a cast silver bar so attractive in some cases here, and that gives that more consistent look here, especially for stacking and holding onto. And this near precious metals bar, it is a bit elongated, and since it's thinner, it's going to get more consistent look. A silver poured bar of this style, this dimensions would be much harder to pull off because silver's got to go across a much larger surface area in order to get this kind of appearance. And so that is your fundamental difference. Typically, poured silver bars are smaller and chunkier, and the cast bars tend to be there's a little bit more freedom in the shapes and of the surface area in order to get them to where they are. Now, that does not mean that you can't have a quite thick cast silver bar too. In fact, I want to get some of those, but this is one of the few cast silver bars I have. I have extruded bars too, but that's a different process. You really don't see that much today through the extrusion process, which I think does still involve, I guess, some level of casting. But poured silver bars definitely are something that has quite taken on quite a hit. It's become quite popular in the community for people to pour their own silver in various different shapes and forms. But the bar is still the most popular and most sought after, I think, amongst collectors in the community of these types of silver products. But here we go. We take a look at all these together, and you can see here that they come together nicely. They're beautiful, and it is something else to see. Here's another example. I have a couple of other examples of poured silver bars that can show you that effect. Here is one that I did quite some time ago. You may have seen this in other videos. You can see the pour lines on this. And again, that bottom has some of that unique character. I'm one of those that don't like those bubbles at the bottom, but there are plenty of other folks that do. Here's one that's poured, and it is become rounded in effect. Now, there is some cases where poured silver can be done, and it is done through a process that one could call it, in a sense, casting, but you're pouring it, and when you pour it, using the Delft clay process, it does tend to give you kind of that 3D look from both sides being set in Delft clay. That makes it very difficult to really distinguish it from cast silver in this regard. But even in this piece from a plumber stacker, you can see the some of the bubbles that have appeared and during that process. But it is quite unique piece indeed. And of course, if there's other imperfections, typically if it's a 3D piece like this that's been sand casted, then typically some of those imperfections may be worked out or redone or left in to provide some semblance of character for the piece. But silver is a metal that is actually very unique and easy to work with in that regard, and it is quite fascinating to see how it comes together. Here's another my very first poured silver piece, and you can see this one does have some of those bubbling and trapping on the very bottom of that you don't see in cast pieces. And so that gives you quite an idea and a look there to see how those play out between this cast and poured silver bars. And of course we know the other kind of bar that you can get, which is quite fascinating, is the stamped variety, which we're all familiar with. We see that in all various different sizes and styles, and we know those are from dies that come together, and there are planchets that are created that are stamped out and cut out, and then that planchet is stamped to give the design appearance on there. But so we know the difference between those, and they're obviously very unique and are very different but consistent between themselves throughout. So there you have it. I hope you found this video informative. And actually, this video topic was sent to me by a relatively new viewer called NEPA Gun Talk, Northeast Pennsylvania Gun Talk. So I want to thank him for the inspiration for this video. And I want to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.